to the Best Sports Betting Podcast. Before we get started, I'm going to announce the winners from our last competition. Each of you is going to get a R100 betting voucher. The correct answer for who is on the back of my AC Milan shirt is Andriy Shevchenko, one of my favorite players from back in the day. Unfortunately, his career took quite a dip when he moved to Chelsea. And our winners are Garth Cuttings, Cuen, and Irvin Khoza. I'm not sure if that's Irvin Khoza from Orlando Pirates, but congratulations, guys. I'll get in touch with you and I'll be sending you a $100 voucher your way soon. Simon, so let's jump straight into today's kind of lineup. We're going to be chatting about the EPL results, some of the T20 World Cup, a quick look at the F1 that took place in the States, and then we're going to be previewing some of the Champions League games, EPL, a quick look at some of the T20 matches, and then just a quick little chat about upcoming Formula One and what we're going to be doing there. So let's start off with the EPL. I want to go straight to the game that I think we both want to talk about, and that was the Newcastle win over Spurs. Squeaky bum stuff, Simon. What a match that was.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was feeling that a draw was the right pick there, and I guess the Toon ended up doing one better and obviously got the win there. Definitely can't say I'm disappointed with that result from a betting perspective.
Massive result, yeah. Up to fourth now.
Yeah, fourth on the table, and that's above Chelsea, United, and Liverpool. So look, it's obviously still early days. I think we're not even week 10 yet, but it's something. That's sort of consolidation in the top half and sort of pushing at those top six places. I think is a good place for Newcastle to be, and where they were expected to be at the beginning of the season, considering all the changes. So I think it's well earned.
Yeah, I think anything in the top 8 I would be very happy with. Obviously, top 6 would be amazing, but I think it's very optimistic at the moment. I'm not sure how long Liverpool's poor form is going to continue. United are kind of getting things sorted. Chelsea are also kind of, I don't want to say they've turned a corner, but they're also looking much better. So it's going to be quite an interesting race. But what a match that was. Callum Wilson with that controversial goal against Hugo Lloris.
Yes.
I think that was a goal all day. The commentators explained it. Lloris was out of his box. He's a keeper. He loses all his keeper protection once he leaves his box. Wilson didn't exactly run into him. If it had happened the other way, then I think that I wouldn't moan about it. I do think Spurs are a little bit hard done by with some penalty shots. There were a couple of those that I really thought, I was wondering why they weren't given as penalties. Going for the ball, catching the man. Maybe not obvious penalties, but wow, on another day, I think
you would have think that like one or two of those would have got called at least. It kind of just seemed like the ref was reluctant to hand those out for sure.
And he was consistent at least. And I also thought that Harry Kane goal was offside. But you do have to give the advantage to the attacker, and I'm not going to complain about it being given. Really couldn't see it. It would have been a harsh offside call, to be honest. But
yes.
I just wish that had a better angle, and that clean sheet would have been amazing. But that was my game of the weekend. And then the other big one is Liverpool losing to Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, rock bottom Nottingham Forest. Despite, as you would expect, having 76% of the possession, 15 shots at goal and 11 corners, but couldn't convert there at all.
Really, really struggling up front, Liverpool. Huge win for Nottingham there, and I'm not sure about this Liverpool team anymore. It's been such a big fall from grace, and they're just not coming right. And I don't see things improving. I'm not sure what's going on there. I think it's just lack of a quality finisher.
Sure.
You can't just rely on Salah all the time, and Nunez is a bit greedy. He's got flashes of brilliance, but I'm not sure he's perhaps the. Well, they're going to have to stick with him, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Then other results, a couple of interesting results over the weekend. City smashing Brighton 3-1, Haaland scoring 2. That man's just looking unstoppable at the moment. Chelsea drawing with United. That was quite an interesting game to watch. Pretty cagey. I think Chelsea should be pretty happy with that result. Their defense is looking a lot better. Man United also played pretty well, and Ronaldo looks like he's going to be on his way out, Simon.
Yeah, gosh, well, it really has just been a sort of sour last few months, really, at the club. And I just think, to be honest, Yeah, something. I think he just needs to move on now. It's just getting a bit. But yeah, I was actually very happy to. I actually liked United in the draw no bet against Spurs. I thought that that price of nearly 2.6 was quite big on a home win over Spurs. So they came through with that on the draw no bet.
I fancy the unders in that match as well.
Yeah,
same with the United match. So it was a double game week. We're not going to touch too much on those midweek ones. But I still think it's a good call backing unders with United or Chelsea involved at the moment.
Yeah, but I mean Arsenal obviously dropping points away to the Saints as well, which is a bit of a surprise. But they still remain 2 points clear of Man City at the top of the table.
Yeah, they looked a little bit too casual. I think that was their problem. I'm sure Arteta's going to have words with them, and they've got a pretty easy fixture running up to the World Cup. So I think they're going to stay on top of the table up until the break for the World Cup. But Arsenal still. I'm still not sure what their title credentials are. It's early in the season, but it's good to have that kind of competition. Then Brentford going down 4-0 to a managerless Brentford, Aston Villa, who've now signed Emre. Gerrard's gone.
Yes,
Emre's in. Quite a turnaround. I mean, to go from someone like Gerrard to Emre, why didn't they bring someone like that in the first place?
You would think so, right? I mean, you would think that Gerrard would be like an interim manager, if anything. So yeah, but I think that's good for Villa. I think that'll be a welcome change there, especially as they're kind of establishing themselves more and more in the Premier League. You know, they really are. They're certainly not absolute fodder anymore.
Yeah, I'm not a Aston Villa fan ever since they relegated us back in, gosh, I can't remember how long ago it was on the last day. So I think they're making quite a few enemies. They they shortchanged Liverpool as well with that City game when they were up 2-0 on the final day of the season. So
yes, absolutely.
The villains, they're earning their name.
They do. Yeah, they have this uncanny ability to upset the apple cart at times when you least expect it.
Then Leicester beating Wolves 4-0, kind of a surprising result there as well. Wolves just looking absolutely torrid at the moment. Cracker of a game between Leeds and Fulham, with Fulham taking that 1-3-2. And that pretty much wraps up the matches that I kind of want to focus on. And we'll be chatting a bit more about some of the upcoming matches shortly. But let's jump into some of the T20. Simon, you like Pakistan. You like Pakistan to beat India. I think you picked up a really good price on it. You're telling me over the weekend. And you were so close. You were so close.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I got an outright bet on Pakistan, so I've got them to win the whole tournament, and I got odds of 9-1, which are the best I could find anyway. So I'm quite happy with that. But yeah, it was an interesting match. I mean, I was obviously a bit disappointed with Pakistan's opening partnership. I mean, Rizwan and Azam, they're such brilliant batsmen, and actually Pakistan have relied more on those two openers than any other team has. So, they really do depend on how those two players perform. They are very much the anchor of the batting lineup there. So, they can often win matches for them, but if they don't pull through, it can be dicey. But yeah, I mean, I see the bookies have actually shortened India's odds quite dramatically after that win over Pakistan. But the best game that I watched over the weekend was Australia, New Zealand. I thought that was brilliant.
Also another cracker, New Zealand
that was a really, really great performance. Very, very gutsy performance from New Zealand. I think the bookies moving Australia down to fourth now in the betting and the outright odds is a little bit of an overreaction. I don't think Australia had an awful game. I mean, I think New Zealand played very, very well. But those were certainly two very, very interesting games. And we'll get onto when we preview.
We might as well. I think we might as well jump into it now, seeing that we on cricket. We've got Australia taking on Sri Lanka today, and we've got Ireland taking on England, New Zealand, Afghanistan, SA, Bangladesh the day after, and then a couple of minnows, taking on some of the bigger sides: Zimbabwe, Pakistan, Netherlands, India.
Yeah, unfortunately for us South Africans, the Proteas game starts pretty early. It's a 5 a.m. start, so obviously not that easy to watch unless you real early bird and can maybe take a little bit of time off work or something. So it is a bit of a tricky one for us to watch here in South Africa. But yeah, as you mentioned today, Australia faces Sri Lanka. That won't be an absolute walk in the park, I would think, for Australia, but I think obviously worthy favourites there, 1.25 to win that match.
Yeah.
But then I think the game that all cricket fans will be looking forward to in a big way is England playing Australia in Melbourne, and that's on Friday. and I think you won't get odds yet. When I looked yesterday, I couldn't find any. But
they've got a match to play still, and I think T20
they've got a match to play. But
changes quite a bit. Yeah,
this could be quite interesting to see who will actually go favourite here, because I think maybe, I mean, to me, it should be about 1.8 in Australia's favour. But based on the current outright odds, England actually might open as the favourites because they're actually higher up in the outright odds. So I'm very interested to see what the bookies do with this, because most of the books have moved England above Australia in the outright betting. So I'd be interested to see how this goes. Maybe it'll be a 1.9 on either side. I don't know. I'll pick them. But I'm interested to see what the bookmakers do with this price. But it should be an absolute cracker.
Who would you pick there for a win?
Oof, it's so hard. It's so hard. I mean, look, I think Australia were not at the absolute best against New Zealand, but I do think New Zealand, it was more case of New Zealand playing really, really well on Saturday. So I don't know, and I haven't seen England play yet, so it's very, very hard to say. I honestly couldn't make a pick there.
Okay, toss a coin.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be very, very hard to tell. I'm interested to see what the bookies do with the price.
Then, Simon, some F1 action, and Verstappen picking up the win. We're not going to be covering any more of the F1 because we were discussing this earlier. It's going to be a bit of a dead rubber, the upcoming races, the titles, everything's pretty much decided.
Yeah, look, I mean, the drivers and constructors, totally wrapped up now, so won't preview any more of those. I mean, as I said, this is not really a race I get super excited about in Texas, but it's great that Mercedes have now had their duck broken, because they've actually won the constructors for 8 years in a row. So it's good to have, because even last season they won the constructors when Red Bull won the drivers' championship, obviously through Max Verstappen. So with 3 races still left to go, Red Bull have now wrapped up the constructors. So it wasn't the most exciting race. I mean, there was a lot of action early on though. First corner of the first lap, Sainz, who was actually sitting in pole, so he qualified in P1. He was hit by George Russell, which meant Sainz had to retire from the race, and that actually gave Verstappen the lead. And the only real moment of doubt, maybe, or panic for Max Verstappen was he had a terrible pit stop where one of his rear wheels got stuck. It was very slow, and that was with about 20 laps to go, which meant that he fell back down to P5. But of course, in true style, he just came flying back up the grid to overtake Hamilton with about 6 laps to go, I think. Yeah, on the 50th lap. So yeah, I mean, again, just brilliant comeback performance from him. But yeah, Hamilton, I was pleased to see him actually finish in second. That's only the second time this season that he's got a P2. He hasn't won any races, but that's a second P2. So I think there are good things coming out of the Mercedes paddock. Hamilton also doesn't seem to be playing sort of second fiddle to Russell anymore, which means to me that he's got a better handle on the car than he used to. I mean, Russell was kind of dominating him at the beginning of the season. So let's hope that maybe Max can, or Hamilton at least, can compete with Max again next season.
Kind of need someone to do that.
Way. Yeah, absolutely.
And then, Simon, we're going to jump over to some of the last of the Champions League group stages. There are a couple permutations. I think Liverpool need a draw just because there's so many dead rubber games. I'm not getting involved again. But
agree.
there's no real big matches that excite me. Maybe the Dortmund against City. Haaland returning to his old side.
Yes.
Other than that, I don't really see anything that jumps out other than maybe the Barcelona-Munich game. That's probably the pick of the card. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the 2 games that I would like to catch, and that would I would like to see. I think AC Milan can get all the points against Dinamo Zagreb in Croatia.
Yes,
that to me that piques my interest from a betting perspective, because there are permutations there, and it's going to make basically in Group E. AC Milan should be expecting to qualify in that group, considering the other 2 teams, or the other 3 teams. So I think that's a good one for me from a betting perspective, and I think it might be a good match to watch. And also Benfica Juventus. I think
you fancy Benfica there, don't you?
I must say I understand why Benfica are being priced as short as they are here. And don't be wrong, I was all over them against PSG, and they drew that match, and I was on the +1.5. But I think that they look a little short here. I actually like a draw, but in that match with Benfica playing at home against Juventus, that would be my sort of long shot there. I like a draw there. I just don't think that maybe Juventus will have enough to sort of overcome them on their home turf. But they'll also be desperate for a point to improve their chances of qualifying to the next stage. So I like a draw there. But I think as you mentioned, I mean, I think the match that probably most people will be interested in is Barcelona hosting Bayern. I mean, the Germans have picked up the maximum points so far, so they've got all 12 points.
Machines, just absolute machines.
Yeah, so 12 points out of 12 so far. So they only need. I mean, Barca have got only one win and a draw under their belts. So yeah, I mean, it's gonna the one from a betting perspective. The one thing that caught my eye here was the unders actually, because under 3.5 goals is 1.73, which I think looks a bit of value, quite honestly. I think Bayern will be happy to kind of keep Barca at arm's length, and I think the bookies have overvalued goals a little bit here. So, I mean, I would not be surprised to see this go under 2.5, but I think under 3.5 at 1.73 looks very good value.
Nice safety net there with that extra goal.
Yeah.
Right then, Simon, let's jump into some of the Premier League. And it's we're into the last couple of game weeks before the World Cup, where they're taking a break until December. And there aren't too many big games on the cards, but we're going to run through a couple of them anyway. It's mostly a mixed match, one of those kind of lopsided weeks. We've got Leicester taking on City. City should have no problem getting past Leicester, although Leicester have kept a clean sheet in their last 4 matches. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens when they come up against a real quality opponents. Bournemouth taking on Spurs. I like Spurs here at 1.7. They're playing away. They looked good against Newcastle. I think they were unlucky. As I think the draw probably would have been a fair result there. Harry Kane just keeps scoring. He's just such a machine for Spurs. He just doesn't catch the headlines like Haaland. But I mean, what's he got, like 10 goals already?
Yeah, no, he's doing brilliantly. I agree. This week there's no sort of obvious standout headline match. I mean, I think you can make a case for some of these games being quite interesting matchups, but there's no real big one. But I actually quite like this card in terms of betting value for a change. I think last week was tricky. I think this week's a little better. I actually like Newcastle at odds of 1.88 at home.
Oh,
I think that's
great odds. That bookies are crazy with that one.
I think that's a nice price. There are injuries, but I still think that's too big. That's too big for Newcastle at home. As I said, injuries piling up a little bit, but I think they can still put them away. I also like Palace at home to Southampton at odds of 1.94. I also think that's decent value. And as you mentioned, Spurs as well. I think they'll bounce back against Bournemouth after dropping points this weekend. As you say, a little unlucky against Newcastle. Obviously, yes, they did lose quite. You can't argue with their loss against United, but I don't like backing such a short price away from home. But I do think that's probably a solid bet. But yeah, so those are actually 3 that I like there. I like Newcastle at home, Crystal Palace at home, and Spurs away.
Great value.
Quite a nice treble there. Actually.
Brighton Chelsea should be interesting goal wise, and I was looking at the unders market here because it's really tempting, but I just find the odds a little bit short. Under 2.5 is 1.8. I see this being like a 1 or 2-0 kind of game. It could be a draw. Brighton are looking good. They put in a reasonable display against. Look, they were hammered in the end, but they still, they grabbed one back through Trossard against City.
Yeah.
They're a solid defense, and they're coming up against also a defensively minded side in Chelsea.
I must say, it's not like I will never bet against Brighton at home, but I do think that they have become one. They kind of remind me a little bit of West Ham about 7 or 8 years ago, where you could almost guarantee that they would. I mean, okay, look, I'm not going to say they're going to beat Chelsea, but they very rarely concede goals at home and sort of beat all the sort of bottom of the table teams sort of 1 or 2-0. And I think Brighton are kind of sort of almost got that sort of the character trait now. So I'll be very wary of backing most teams, honestly, away to Brighton. So that's one I'll watch with interest, but certainly not going to back Chelsea there at those odds.
Yeah, I can't back Chelsea, but there is value backing Chelsea there. But I'm not interested in it. I think this one's going to be a low scoring draw or Chelsea sneaker win or something like that. I'm not sure Brighton will pick up the win here. I think the draw is probably a good shot, but the unders is a little bit appealing at 1.81, but I'm not going to be including it. I just thought I'd bring it up. Then Brentford against Wolves. Now, Brentford really struggled. They got hammered on the weekend, but they're still a quality side. Tony is still can be relied on to score goals. They're facing a Wolves side that just looks terrible. They're playing at home. They're 2.2. I think it's a very tempting price to take Brentford there on the double chance. 1.35 for your accumulator. I don't see them losing this one at home.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't think so. I mean, they have become more and more of a reliable side. And look, obviously that 4-0 defeat will be fresh in the minds of a lot of people against Villa. But I agree with you. I really can't see them losing this match.
Then Liverpool taking on Leeds. Do you think Liverpool will break their hoodoo? 1.34 is actually cracking value, to be honest, on Liverpool. When did you ever think you'd see odds? Look, I know it's not good odds, but 1.35 against Leeds,
I mean, that was insane. Last season, that would be 1.12, 1.13, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely nuts. I'm slapping Liverpool, and I just can't ignore it. It's probably going to be the leg that lets me down. It's going to be a 1-1 draw, and Leeds are going to pull the rabbit up the hat at the end there or something.
Yeah.
Same with Arsenal, 1.21. Okay, those odds are right, at least, I feel, against Nottingham Forest. I think Arsenal are going to put a couple past them. I'm ignoring that Liverpool result. I think that was kind of bit of a one-off. Although they were playing so compactly at the back. I don't know if you watched that game.
I didn't actually see much of the game. I saw some highlights, so I can't really comment on it.
Really parked the bus in the sense, but they just defended so closely and so compactly, really organized. But that Liverpool couldn't take advantage of their chances because they didn't have finishes. Whereas you look at Arsenal, you've got Saka who can score, you've got Martinelli, you've got Jesus. So many players in that side that are in form and that can finish. And I think they could put a couple past Nottingham Forest here. I think Arsenal to win maybe over 2.5 goals. That combination could be a good shout. The odds are 1.56. Actually, that's terrible. Wow, just having a look at that.
Yeah, no, that's not a good price.
Yeah, I'd almost be
tempted for two permutations. No ways.
Yeah, I'd almost go Arsenal under 3.5 at those odds, but I think Arsenal should pick up a win here. Arsenal on the handicap, there's not much value either. I do think they win by more than 2 goals, but let's see what the handicap is here. Here we go. Handicap 1.55, so not really interested in that. But I think an easy win for Arsenal there, so I'm going to slap that one into the accumulator. Then we have Manchester United taking on West Ham. That should be quite an interesting one, Simon.
Yeah, I must say United, I think United are certainly... I still think they've got some surprise results in the bag. I'm not saying that they are a predictable unit just yet, but they are certainly looking better, and I think that Ten Hag is sort of finding his feet there. And I don't know, I could see them going on a bit of a tear at some point this season, and I'm just not quite sure when it is.
Well, they've been on a bit of a tear. If you look at their results, I mean, they drew with Chelsea. They picked up a couple of big wins as well. They were on an unbeaten streak for quite a while. They just haven't. Yeah, I see what you mean. They just haven't been scoring and running away with it.
Yes.
But 1.72 is very, very tempting. I do fancy a low scoring game here again. Don't think United will grab too many, and there's a whole lot of dark clouds around with Ronaldo and all of that stuff. So
yeah, but I mean, you say dark clouds. I mean, that might be exactly what they need, to be honest. Get him out of the team. I
mean, just walking out of the tunnel when you were winning 2-1 against Spurs or whatever it was. I mean, come on.
I think he's obviously a bit of a cloud in the dressing room. He has been late. So I think, to be honest, I don't think it can be anything but. It's not like they need him. Let's be honest.
No,
they don't need Ronaldo.
No,
they've got an absolutely stellar bunch of players. The fact that, we've spoken about this before, the fact that it's taken so long, and we can't really ever say that they have fully clicked is a miracle to me, because there are not many sides that are better on paper.
Yeah.
But so I think Ronaldo leaving is a blessing, honestly.
Yeah, I think Ten Hag gets the job done here against West Ham. I'm just not sure if I want to be backing them. it could be a draw because they have that tendency, but they are looking pretty dangerous, and it's just a matter of time before they click, I think. But I'm not sure this is going to be the one. But so what I've got in the accumulator here, Simon, and it's a big one. Got Newcastle to beat Aston Villa, Crystal Palace to beat Southampton, Spurs to beat Bournemouth, Brentford double chance against Wolves, Liverpool to beat Leeds, and then Arsenal to beat Nottingham Forest. 13.49. How juicy is that?
Nice
for an accumulator bet, and you're getting almost 15 on Betway with that boost. And speaking about boosts, Lulabet had some cracking specials over the weekend. They had Arsenal to beat Southampton at 7.5, boosted from like 1.59. Incredible value. I think the max bet was only 20 Rand. But it was pretty much, it wasn't guaranteed, of course, but it was incredible value. And I think they're limited to 91 different players, and I think all of them got snapped up. So take a look on Lulabets to see if they post.
Very unfortunate that it happened to be on the weekend. I think is that like their second Premier League loss or something?
Yeah.
Or even, if that,
Yeah, all the dropping points,
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate there. They also had another crazy special, which was Verstappen to finish on the podium at 7.5, which was also a 20 Rand. And I took both of those, and it's easy money because, 150 Rand I got paid out from that for something that's
basically Verstappen has to crash out the race, not to finish on the podium, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, other things can happen, and, like we saw that with the Arsenal game, but you can take a bet like that and you can just immediately go and trade it off. So you can put your 20 Rand and get that 7.5 on, say, Arsenal to beat Southampton, and then you can go and back Southampton on a double chance. Let me go and see what those odds might be. See if I can find a game that has.
I imagine that it would have been about 2 to 1.
Let's have a look. They're probably let's see that. Yeah, that'd be well over even money. Let's call it that. So you could you could make an easy profit on that just by kind of arbitraging some of those bet boosts. I know the bookies that listen to the podcast are probably like cringing right now, but it's a really good way to make some extra bucks when you see those specials. And so I definitely recommend looking out for those and just keeping in touch with some of the boosts. And they're not always going to be that.
Yeah, look, obviously bookies don't like it when you do it on their website. So if you take a deposit bonus or whatever and you back two opposite markets on their side, they're not going to let you do that. But there's nothing stopping you from going to another site and doing that. So that's always a good way to guarantee you make some money.
Exactly.
Deposit bonus or free bet.
And hopefully we see a few more of those in the future. But guys, that wraps up today's episode. I don't think there's anything else you're not really following. Are you following the NFL?
Bits and pieces. I was going to try and watch it a little bit this morning, but they're showing it on ESPN2 on Monday mornings now from. Because they're so hard to catch the games here with the time difference. But no, I haven't really. I just know that the Bills are pretty dominant, the Buffalo Bills. And I watched one of their games, but I can't say I've been keeping up much.
Yeah, Sam, not at all. But yeah, guys, we're not going to be here next week for the podcast. We'll be back the week after. So that's why I'm not going to be running a competition this week, because I don't want to forget about it and then forget who won and all of that. But we will be back the week after that, where I think we'll start with our World Cup 2022 Qatar betting previews. We're going to be giving out all sorts of tips, and the podcast is going to be very much World Cup oriented for the next couple of weeks. And hopefully we can find some cracking value. We picked Italy in the Euros.
Unfortunately,
let's do it. They're not in the World Cup this time, but hopefully we can pick another outright winner. That would be fantastic. But guys, thanks for tuning into the episode, and we'll catch you in a couple of weeks. Have a good one, guys.